Bookmark it. It's gonna happen. If it doesn't happen, I will be more shocked and I will give the author more respect. If it doesn't happen.
That's such a shout. I am fully for that.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everybody to the third episode of the Ink Catchers Book Club reviews. I'm here with my usual co-host Johnny, but we also have special guests, which are my brother and Alex and Becca from Other Words and Malarkey, if that's your proper channel name. Is that correct?
Words and Other Malarkey, but
there we
enough.
go. There we go. Close enough. Okay. I will leave, obviously, all the details for her channel down in the description below if you'd like to check her out. But, today we're all here to discuss YouTube's baby. Yay! We did it. We all read. Here we go. 6 of Crows. And we all have thoughts. And it's, better to have more people. I tried to get 6 people for this. We only got 4, but I feel like the gang, we would still pull off a heist together. So we're all, this is going to be full of spoilers. And I'm going to skip the usual segment of, if you don't know about this book, then, don't, this is what it is about, because I feel everybody knows about this book. So we're going to go straight into the juicy details and begin. Okay, you guys, how would you summarize this book in like 3 sentences, each one of you? Let's start with that. Who wants
we
to
get
go
3
first?
sentences each, or is
it 3
one
sentences
sentence
each?
per person?
Like we're not going to do a sentence per person. 3 sentences each. How would you describe this book without spoilers? Okay, let's do without spoilers at the beginning.
I would say it is grimy Victorian Ocean's 11 with babies acting like 28-year-olds.
Yep, I feel that's really good. Yep. Johnny,
honestly,
Alex.
I think I'll take that one as well, because I don't think any description is more apt than that. Especially the babies acting as 28-year-olds. That's
Okay, but hold off on that. That's for the band section. Yeah, that's for the band section. What about you, Johnny?
A grim but jovial adventure with strange camaraderie of extremely oddly experienced 17-year-olds on an adventure that even I think I'd probably freak out on, and I'm 26.
Yeah.
But very entertaining. I could see why they want to make it a TV show.
Yes, that's also part of why we're reading it, because guys, we're in for the watch along for the Netflix series, if you don't know.
Netflix, if you want to sponsor us by the time it comes out,
But yeah, basically, for like a bit of a brief summary, as I did in my previous video, it's essentially a book. It's essentially a high fantasy heist book with a bunch of teenagers who live in a city which is very, very similar to Amsterdam, in a world that has people who have powers. Some people have some powers, and that's the extent of the summary without giving anything away. So, yay, okay. And now we'll get into the fun bit. Who's has what favorite character and why? Let's start off with that.
I can go first, because my answer is kind of a cop-out answer.
I didn't like anyone.
Kind of the opposite. I liked all characters. There wasn't a character that I thought was, to me, a bad character is a character that I'm supposed to either like or hate, but I end up doing so for the wrong reasons. Either it's poorly written, or the character's poorly written. They don't have really any substance. They're just there for the sake of being there. I don't think any of the main characters or characters of note, which are in the book themselves, are like that. I quite enjoyed, one of the things I quite enjoyed about the book as a whole was that all the characters had very strong, at least in my view, like bases, and none of them were boring per se. Sure, you could say that some of them were a bit more two-dimensional than others, but they kind of all did their jobs well. So I can't really say that I have a favorite in that regard.
Fair enough.
I would say my favorite character of the bunch was Kaz, because I don't know, I'm a sucker for like that stereotype or that character archetype of like the bad boy who's kind of, you know, he's got this tough exterior, but he has this, you know, these reasons that are hidden down deep. But like there are things about me that things about him that annoyed me too, so we can hold off on that. But as for least, I agree with Alex that like none of the characters were like, you know, terrible. There wasn't one that was like bland or didn't have something to them. But probably if I had to pick one, Wylan, just because he was the least developed. We didn't get any of his perspective. He was kind of like in the background most of the time, and I just didn't get a very good grip on him till the end. So that would be my take.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with you on the Wylan part. Like for me personally, my favorite character would have to be, I really liked Ine. She beats out Kaz for me by like a close margin, only because I think Ine is such an interesting character in the, like, from the strong women kind of archetype. Because Kaz, again, yeah, he's a very, very, I would say, from an archetype perspective, he's very generic in the sense of, as you said, Becca, like tough exterior, soft interior, even though he was really cool. And he's definitely my second favorite. My third favorite would definitely be Jesper. And then my least favorite characters would kind of, like, again, I don't really have a least favorite because I agree. I think they had something to bring to the table. But I think Matthias actually might be my least favorite character if I had to be like a super, super strict about it and say, well, you know, they're all favorite, but he's my least favorite because, yeah, I think he had nothing going for him except Nina is my light and saving grace, but I also want to kill her, and that was literally his only character trait, and I felt that was really annoying because you were like, well, I don't have no idea what is your past in the Druskella, right? It's like there's no real past like we got for Kaz and for Ine. Nothing there is being discovered, etc. So it just felt a bit off in that aspect for me personally. But yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, that would be the way that I would rank them. Would be like Ine, Kaz, Jesper, Nina, Will, and Matthias, actually, probably for me. What about you, Johnny?
I really like Ine's character. Thought that was the most well-rounded and believable of stories. Her background, where she's come from, like it. I very much. There's a scene in particular that I very like, but I'll mention that later. But I really like her reasons for being there. She both has a sort of emotional attachment, but also a personal mission, like desire to be free, and pay off her debts. But also like her skill set wasn't like OP. It was like like just I'm sneaky, but it's well described why she is the way she is.
Yeah.
And she gets lots of good moments that explore her depth. And she bounces off the rest of the cast quite well. So I think Ine was my favorite. The others, I still like. I agree. They're very much. There's no bad characters, I don't think. Even Wylan, I empathize with, even though they didn't get much screen time. It's a good character as well. I don't particularly like his dad.
I mean,
But that's mostly because, like, I felt
he's a
like
bastard man. Yes.
well, the twist wasn't as believable as I wanted it to be.
Okay.
Whereas at the start, he doesn't come across as conniving or capable of scheming. The scene even, like, it's from Kaz's perspective. I don't want to get into it, but because
I mean,
it's
that's
not
the
it's
entire
not
point
it's not
is
about
get into it.
it's not about characters at this point. It's more
Yeah,
about
okay,
like
fair
Kaz
enough.
is describing like how he's seeing through Banek's, desires, and how he's scared or how he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he snuck his like necklace away from him and stuff like that, and the jewelry, like, but and then later on in the book, he's a mastermind, that actually wanted him dead and stuff, and you're like, what? Did you? Okay.
That's smart then. What it reminded me of, have you guys seen the movie Now You See It?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the twist with Mark Ruffalo's character.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of, because like I know it's supposed to be, oh my god, big huge twist, but you got absolutely no foreshadowing that I can remember. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, that he was like the mastermind, and then all at the end, oh, I'm the master magician, like, woo, look at me. And I'm just like, what? Like, okay, that's a twist, but like, give me something to like suspect about you, and there was nothing.
Yeah.
I guess the entire sorry.
No, go ahead. This is gonna keep happening, so go ahead.
I guess I was sort of thinking about this. I guess the entire point of why it's so abruptly put with Now You See Me and with Van Eyck is that the suddenness of the twist itself is supposed to be what brings the sort of gravitas of the situation of, oh my god, this is something completely extraordinary happened that even the main characters couldn't believe it. I think that there is a time and place for that sort of plot twist where it comes completely out of nowhere, because if done right, it does throw people into a sense of, oh, I had no idea that this was coming, and this is so well done because now it shifts everything onto its head. The problem, like you said, is that maybe it wasn't as well done as it could have been, and so it just goes like, oh, this is a plot twist, yes, but I'm not necessarily as emotionally invested as I thought. Yes, I think that the dad is a bit more of an asshole now, considering, like, just considering. We'll get into that later, but yeah, probably not the most well done. There was a lot that could have been done well, which was just kind of like dropped off a bit.
Well, actually, I think this is a great way, because we're all really, really keen on to get to the free form bants and like actually spear a couple of things through. So I'm gonna move it straight into favorite scene and least favorite scene, and preface this by saying that I personally thought that this book read like a movie, and I spoke to Alex about this, and I think I spoke to Becca about this, and to Johnny, is that one of the main things that this book is, essentially, it feels like you're reading a movie that you should be seeing on screen. And that's why I think that the TV show might actually have a lot of good material to work with. Like, it might work maybe even better on screen than when it was in book form, because of the way that it's written, because it has all the fundamentals of a good movie script, but it's just its actual canon material. So you could literally lift it and put it on the screen and it would work well. And that's why when I say scenes, my favorite scene that I'm excited also to probably see in real life, which I'm really hoping that we do see, it would probably be the way that they broke into the actual like fort, the ice fort in Fjerda. Or, I mean, I wouldn't say there's now that I'm thinking about it, like I don't really have a favorite scene. I think I have a least favorite scene, and that might just actually be the end of the book. That the end of the book where and I'm gonna steal this from Alex a bit, which he will elaborate. But yeah, so the end of the book, for the exact same reason that Alex has it, actually, so he'll talk about that. And my second least favorite is probably the first chapter. I thought the first chapter was a very odd chapter to start. It feels like it had actually nothing to do with that. The only thing that we know is that who actually was keeping the Grisha? Like, was it Van Eyck? Was it? I thought
it was a Hood or something. Hood.
Yeah,
like
Hood. Yeah. So it wasn't even Van Eyck. Yeah. So it's essentially just kind of like, it's a very weird place to start, and you then kind of have to like get over a couple of chapters before you get into the book, and that scene doesn't really give you anything. If it's supposed to build up what the Grisha are, I feel like it's a very, very weak chapter to do so. If it's supposed to be okay, well, somebody's out to get there and something's happening. I feel like it could have been a lot cooler than just some councilmen keeping them in like a locked box. Like, again, or there should have been more world building for us to be more immersed into Ketterdam. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. I don't really think I have a favorite one, but least favorite ones, I do have a couple.
I will briefly, before saying my favorite and least favorite, jump to the defense of the first chapter.
Yeah.
I'm personally a fan of books that start off with just throwing you into the deep end in terms of having already established concepts and you just go with it. Yes, the chapter itself is a bit lacking and is a bit interesting in how it's framed, I will admit, but I very much like it looking back even more so because it really sets the tone of an outsider's perspective as a security guard looking in on this councilman who's keeping these people hostage. And then you see sort of like you yourself, you're looking from the perspective of somebody who doesn't know what's going on, but everything's already established around them. They don't need to know what Ketterdam is, what everything is. You're just another person on the street. And therefore, it's even more shocking that a person who's sort of a native in that place has no idea what's going on and everything's happening to them. So kind of like you feel more immersed in that. Granted, it's not my favorite scene, but I feel like it's a good way of putting you into the actual story. My favorite scenes kind of encompass it. It's the scenes with interaction between characters, because I feel what this book does really well is character interaction and character dialogue. So whenever you have two characters on screen who interact, whether it be main character, non-main character, it's always fun and it's always interesting, and it never drags on for too long. It's very tight. Like the dialogue in this book is quite tight. There's nothing really superfluous to kind of just make you go like, oh, okay, we get it already. Let's go on to the main point. You always feel like you're going somewhere.
Fair.
So in that way, it's quite dynamic. It always is establishing something, even if it's joking. It does so in a way that you kind of get more of the character built through their sense of humor or the way that they interact with another character or an object, and so forth. My least favorite scene.
Well, let's get on to that, yeah.
And this is this actually kind of ruined the book for me. I will say it in those harsh words as well, because up until that point, it was great.
Let's go for it.
I didn't even care about the fact that the plot twist happened. I enjoyed it. I sort of even can we how spoilery can we get at this
We
point?
can full spoiler.
Okay.
All the way.
I didn't even mind that Pekka Rollins wasn't dead. Like that Kaz had somehow managed to foresee a situation which he would need Pekka. Which fair enough. He wants to destroy the man completely. So killing him in a fear to prison probably doesn't really constitute completely destroying him. But then all of a sudden, Ine's captured, they've run away, they're basically completely broken at the fact, they're at nothing. He has to sell his stake in the Crow Club, yeah, and the rights to the port, all these things. And then I couldn't help but in my head hear the Avengers Assemble music at the end when they're all coming together and being like, yeah, we're gonna do this, guys. And basically I was like, what?
Let's get back our friend.
Honestly, this entire book was just oh, we need to it's very realistic in the sense of if something hurts, you had that honestly beautiful scene where Kaz, when they're getting into the actual car, he gets he's traumatized by all the bodies being put together, which reminds him of his brother. And then for some reason, a traumatic event where the person that he, quote unquote, loves is taken away. Everything is just ripped from his hands. Everything's in disarray. Now's the time where basically he turns into Captain America and goes guys, it's all okay. All friendship will save us. It ruined, and it genuinely felt that was the beforehand I kind of still thought it was a book. That was the moment I was this is a movie. this is literally the ending that you get before a sequel. This is like the studio went, we want a sequel and we want everybody to leave on a happy note. So they, they come back. So put it in there. And I don't know. That's my rant.
That's exactly how I felt.
Now I can't unsee it.
It is the same.
Like
It's
there's
honestly
something. Yeah. Can I also say there was something really off-putting about the last chapter being in Pekka's perspective? Like all of a
It was out of
sudden,
nowhere as well.
out of nowhere, just like, but because that's what it felt like. It felt like an end cap at the end of the credits. Like it's like from like a Marvel movie, like a different character's perspective. It's setting up the next movie. You see the other characters in the scene, but there's some other character who you're focused on. Like, oh yes, that's gonna be the next movie. I totally see it now.
I think I told Nat the other day how it felt a bit like at the end of Back to the Future 2, where like this just guy in a suit turns up and goes like, Marty McFly, I have a letter strictly delivered to this date and this time after a lightning strike. It's like the Duck's alive. It's just setting up the next book without like enough believable context. And in that case, in the movie, time travel, but in this case, it was like, okay, we're all a happy band of friends now, known each other a day, like, well, more than a day, but still.
Yeah, but
not
still,
enough
yeah.
for the music to start playing in the background.
So what would you guys say, Becca and Johnny? What is your favorite and least favorite scene before we get onto the free-for-all chompy into the good juicy bits?
Johnny, you want to go? You want me to go?
I'll just go quickly. Favorite scene, I quite liked the small but descriptive chapter about Inej climbing up from her perspective, the incinerator tower, and the sort of it goes through her thoughts and feelings, like in her head, how the situation was going wrong, how have they been convinced to do this? This is a mad plan, doubting herself, and then overcoming her doubts and going, I just need to push forward. I am Inej. I can climb this tower. Like I was like, that's well written. That's like someone challenging their fear and then keeping going. And I just loved it. Like it was a believable moment of panic and overcoming panic of like, I need to remain strong in this moment. You can recollect later. Right now,
Her
I
name
have a
is
job
Inej?
to do. Well, it's in A, I guess.
No,
He's pronouncing it Inej.
I'm really bad.
It's got a J
because-
on the end, but in my brain sometimes I read it because I'm dyslexic as Inej. And then I'm
okay.
like, the J is quite probably silent if it's a bit like Jesper, or said like a Y. Maybe it's an A. Who knows? But she's not from where Jesper's from, so maybe it's
so
pronounced different as
maybe
well. Who
Inej,
knows?
Yeah.
Don't know.
Fair enough.
But we'll find out in the TV show, I'm sure.
Yeah. Or if somebody comments down below flaming all of us for the wrong
actually,
pronunciation.
it's Inai. But I like that scene. Least favorite, either the end, as you described, or at near the start of the book, when they have the confrontation in I can't remember what they called it again. It's like the bank sector. It's like this neutral territory where they have the dregs have the confrontation.
Lid? Is it the lid?
With
That's the bank sector?
the other group.
Barrel? Is the barrel the whole thing?
The barrel is the whole thing, and there's this like neutral ground.
Yeah, there's the
place where they have
lid of the
this-
barrel, then there's the dregs.
lid.
Kaz Brekker has this confrontation or parley with the other gang, and it just stooged out like this.
Oh,
scene
right at the
from
very beginning.
It was like Sherlock. I was like, oh my god, what the fuck is going on? Like there was this. It was like, but I knew you knew I would bribe the guards. So I bribed them double. And he goes like, waha, well, I knew you knew that you would bribe the guards. So I paid them double and triple and also kidnapped their kid. It's like, well, I knew you knew that you would bribe the guards double and kidnap their kid. So I put a stooge kid in and you kidnapped the stooge kid. So I still have the one up on you. And you're like, what the hell is going on? These are street rat kids. This guy is 17. Actually, you don't know that yet as well. Like in this whole scene, you're like, oh my God, I pictured this grizzled 35-year-old, like next level fucking gangster guy. Like he knew things. He described his wobble. I had this like idea. He's like long overcoat, hands in his pockets. He looked terrifying. He was the game, and he knew how to play it, and then like the next chapter, like oh, and it just drops it at this weird point where in dialogue, I think it was when he was talking with Van Eyck, 17, and you go, what?
Wasn't it actually when Ine was describing herself and she's just like, oh yeah, Kaz is like 3 years my older, and you're like, I'm sorry, what now?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I don't like that.
But hang on. We're gonna
let's get back to that.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to that because now it's Becca. Becca, you wrap
Oh,
up
gosh.
the organized part, and then we can get into.
All right, I gotta wrap this up good. Well, Johnny, you stole my favorite scene, so boo on you. No, I totally agree that the scene in the incinerator shaft was very tight and very cinematic, which I would love to see it as a scene in a movie. But and it's sold me on Inej or Ine, however you want to say it. I was pronouncing it Inej in my head.
I mean, fair enough. We'll go with Inej.
Yeah, it was a very well written scene. As I was reading it, I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is good. Least favorite, actually, I would say is in when they break Matthias out of Hellgate, and the confrontation between the first confrontation between him and Nina when he like tries to strangle her. I was just like, what the fuck is up with these two? Because before that point, I thought, okay, maybe Matthias is like an old boyfriend, which, kind of sort of, she's like, oh, I've been trying to save Matthias for so long. You're finally like letting me save him. And then you meet him and he's like, hi. And I'm just like, what the hell is this dynamic? Holy shit. Like, this is not happy. And then you learn that they're like 16 and 7 or 17 and 18. I'm just like, what is going on? I don't like it. And the prison in general was just like, oh God, this awful gladiator stuff. Like,
it's Fight Club, and we don't talk about Fight Club.
Apparently not. Yeah. So like that was like, as the story goes on, Matthias and Nina get better. I understand that, but at first I was just like, nope, red flags all over the place. So yeah, that's me.
All right, well, you wrapped that up really, really well, and you actually brought us to like the juicy bits. So now we're going to, all the receipts. Everybody can crack open their books if they want to pull out their receipts. But I'm actually going to start with what we all mentioned, and that is the fact that I think the biggest shortcoming of this book is the fact that it's trying to pass off as young adult fiction, purely because of the ages of the characters. This is not young adult fiction.
It's just fiction.
It is just fiction, and I would think that it would actually benefit more from the characters being older, because Nina, for example, especially what Becca just said, Nina and Matthias have a very, very convoluted relationship. And if you're trying to pass it off as young adult fiction, I had this discussion again with somebody in the comments from one of my previous videos, and they were like, well, it's what the characters experience as young adults. First of all, no. Second of all, even if this is a fictional world and they're supposed to be like older, you do not write this for normal people, as in like us, right? The readers. Because this is portraying a really, really toxic relationship, at least at the beginning, or a very, not even toxic, but a very nuanced. It can exist. Like the backstory for why it is the way it is can exist. But only, let's say, if you're like 30, because then you can say, okay, these people have life experience. These people have fallen in love before. They're not infatuated the first time. There is background why they feel so strongly for each other. They also, have like wounds, war wounds from previous experience type of thing that tells them to be better, but they're making this kind of mistake. Like they're putting their trust and they're still yearning for this person despite all of that knowledge kind of thing. Whereas here, you can assume that for them, these characters, this is like their first or second romance. They're 17. This is the worst thing that you can possibly, this excuses very toxic behavior for young people. And I think that this is, really has to be very, very skillfully done, or not done at all. And you can say, okay, well, you know, young people can also make mistakes, right? Stupid mistakes, but like, you can still make them 20. Like, they don't have to be 17, you can make them 20. And I think, Alex, you pointed it out, something is that when Matthias is describing Nina, a lot of that language is very sexual. Or like, it's sexual to the point that you're like, you're 17. I'm like reading this and I don't really feel super comfortable and like actually understanding that this is a 17-year-old that this is happening with.
And this is like a lot of the descriptions of like her being curvy and her bust. That's like at this point when she's 17. There are scenes like from a year previous when she's even younger where they're just full on lying naked, like flirting with one another. And you're just going like, yeah, okay, I understand, you know, dynamic, haha. It's just like, this is probably what would happen in like a cinematic setting. But again, just age them up. Make them at least 18. Make them at least 20. Like, don't even go 18, like bare minimum. Go like 20. Nothing is lost. Everything becomes a bit more believable. Like, every single character becomes more believable.
Yeah. I think Kaz especially, because as Becca mentioned and as Johnny mentioned, Kaz is like
makes the least sense. He's very cool, but he makes the least sense.
Yes.
He's so awesome, but he makes the least sense.
His backstory, like once you get the full scope of the backstory, it's like at first I was like, what the, like I get it, like, yeah, it's tragic, but like the what bothered me about him was that his transformation from, you know, wide-eyed little boy to hardened criminal happens within the space of like 2 minutes. You get no indication prior to his brother dying that, oh, this kid's good with, except that he like was interested in magic tricks, and a lot of kids are interested in magic tricks. You get no indication that he's good with numbers, that he's super clever, you know, that he's you know, beyond his years. It's just like, oh, he's a 9-year-old boy and he's following his brother around trying to survive. And then all of a sudden it switches. And I get, like, you know, a traumatic experience can change you, but you get the line about like that boy drowned in the ocean with his brother and emerged like Kaz Brekker. I'm just like, no, that happens over years of built up experiences and tragedy and being on the street. That doesn't happen overnight. Like, and they were literally in that city for like maybe a few months before his brother died. So I just couldn't buy it. I liked Kaz even with his, like, you know, unbelievably, you know, maturity stuff. Like I liked him as a character archetype, but yeah, he made no sense. He really did. His backstory was just like, I don't know, man. Like, try again.
I would like you just pointed it out about the fact like a lot of kids like magic tricks, so that's why I was laughing, because I can just imagine like every kid just now becomes Kaz Brekker if somebody takes away their lollipop at too young an age. But it was more so the point that I kind of came up with was the way that you said, it matured him really fast despite the time that he really spent there. And this is usually in trauma like this builds into your character like the longer it goes on. It kind of feels like the author wrote it in the way that teens think they develop in terms of how events will shape them. Like, oh, this guy now, like, he's a grizzled veteran because of all of a sudden he, like, you know, he spent 6 months there, you know, obviously his brother died. It's like traumatic event, and all of a sudden he's this hardened criminal who used to have a love for magic tricks and now likes shanking people on the regular and kidnapping their kids. Like,
I mean, do you remember, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Do you remember what happened? Because Becca said like it was instantaneous, but how instantaneous, just in case somebody's watching this who's like, you know what, I'm just super curious. What happened was that he his brother Wright dies. There's like a massive plague that sweeps the city. His brother dies. They're thrown onto like a barge. I forgot the name of the barge, like the body barge. And he's alive, and he uses his brother's body to paddle back to Ketterdam. He crawls out, and then literally the next day he walks the street, or like the next week he walks the street, passes by a or like he's still sick and he gets better. It's like it takes a month, but he walks by, he sees like a little kid or he's like, give me a job at one of the gambling dens, and he's like, yeah, but we already have a kid working here. So he follows the kid home, like what, beats him up, breaks his legs or something like that, and walks up and then gets his job. It's like, okay, that's some cruelty that you do not just gain overnight. It's
out of left field.
yeah.
And for my next trick, break his kneecaps.
It sets
Yeah.
a weird precedent where it's just like, well, maybe the world would have way more Batmans if we just killed kids, like killed their parents or siblings. It's like, now they're just Batman now. They're motivated, dark, suddenly extremely capable, stalwart. It's like, no, most of these kind of experiences break people. They don't make them amazing. Like, but also like it comes out of you were a feverish little boy. How did you go to kill someone and take their job?
Yeah, I think there was a phrase I read somewhere, which is healing is what makes a person, not the breaking. So it's like it's the healing, and I think a lot of trauma, actually, it's the way that it's healed, because trauma that isn't healed remains as trauma, and that is how it builds into your character. Whereas I completely agree with Alex actually here, and he brought up an excellent point. It just seems that, first of all, it was written in a movie. It's like, this is a scene, and then here's a scene, and then here's a scene. But a book is different from a movie, that you're allowed to fill in the gaps. That's the entire point of the book, right? You fill in the little gaps. And second of all, it's like, yeah, like a teenager imagines how this will shape his life, and it's like, my first love, oh my god, that's it, I'm scarred for life. Like, yes, it's a huge thing for you to overcome, but it's not going to be like, it will be how you deal with it that is going to matter, not the actual event, if you think about it. So yeah, I have a major problem with that.
One of the things that we keep talking about, and this is me kind of going against what Becca, you, and Johnny said beforehand about your favorite scene about the climbing the incinerator. I love that scene, honestly. It's a really good scene, and when you mentioned it, it kind of brought it back to just how well done it was. I would actually argue, and I don't do this out of love in my heart or out of joy, that might be one of the scenes which is the most hit by the fact that it goes into a cinematic portrayal. Because the way that the book is written, the more I look at it, the more it's true that one of the problems with adapting books to movies is that they're so dense in description and there's so much world building that you have to cut things out, and that leaves it to be a bit hollow when you watch the movie, because you're missing all of these elements which really brought the depth to it. Here, you sort of don't have that in terms of world, like even the world building itself is very sort of shallow, or just like, we have a backdrop on which we act, and most of it is through character and dialogue, which lends itself very well. The problem with that scene, and this is what's a big problem I had with the adaptation of The Hunger Games, was that this scene is completely Inej talking to herself in her own head. This is exactly what happened in The Hunger Games, where most of what was happening, or even in not The Hunger Games, or The Hunger Games and The Maze Runner, is most of it happens in their own heads, their own thoughts. I'm very scared, and again, they might somehow pull this out and do it brilliantly. I'm very scared as to how they're actually going to do it, because you're either left with the obvious choice of her just speaking all of this out loud, which really takes away from it, because she's literally struggling to get herself up, and yet between breaths she has like time to monologue about how she's going to kill Kaz, and she like hates him and like the situation and everything. Or you somehow do it all visually, but then it takes away from the internal struggle that she's currently going through in her thought process. So I'm like, yes, I'm excited to see how they portray it cinematically, and I hope they do it well, but I would want you guys at this point, if possible, to like give me some reassurances on that, because I'm a bit skeptical as to how they're gonna go about actually putting that scene into practice.
Don't know. It's not out yet.
John, it's like
True,
somebody else's
true,
job. I'm just here to
true.
like enjoy the media, to enjoy the content.
But on that note, can I point out something you said about
Mhm.
the setting and the world building being a backdrop? Because I completely agree. I think that's a big point. Because I think I mentioned to you, Nat, like, does this, well, because you said it felt like fan fiction, that it read like fan fiction to you, and then as I was reading it, I was like, yeah, this feels like something where I should know the world before going in, and the way they throw you in the first chapter, it's like, okay, I feel like, and that can work by itself, with a book where you have nothing, you know nothing about the world, but this comes from a pre-existing world, the Grishaverse, or whatever Bardugo calls it. Like she had a previous trilogy, right, that had like this world, or this concept of the Grisha, the magic users, already established. So she, like, reading this, it was like I was supposed to know this already, and it threw me off because I couldn't really care about the magic system and about the world the way I wanted to, because it was just kind of like taken for granted, like assumed that I already knew, and that bothered me a lot. I don't know how other people thought about it.
I feel like it was one of my biggest iffiness bits of the book as well, but at the same time, I felt like at the start of the book they tried, like the author, it felt like the author was aware of this problem, and so tried to toe the line of here's these things that aren't explained, but I will baby them to you, and leave it up to like something magic is happening. This is what a Grisha is. This is what's going on, without having to directly explain it to you. It was just like, here's a novice, juiced, experiencing what a Grisha is and going through the different types. Here's a fabricator. Here's this. Here's what the healer does. And here's what they're supposed to do. And you're like, okay. But then as the book goes on, it feels like there were more elements that certainly would have had way more payoff if you understood the Grishaverse. Whereas they come off a little bit too, like, instead of the reaction they want out of you, which is like, man, what a twist. It's more like, oh, okay, that's weird. Like, I don't know who this or what this is supposed to be, but apparently that's happening now. And that's cool. But I'm sure that has way more payoff to someone that's read the other books. It kind of feels like that at times.
I have actually a question to all of you. I think this brings up a great point that happened in the book. Jesper as a fabricator, thoughts? Because I thought that the lead up to it, because everybody was like, why is Jesper here? Why is Jesper here? Why is, like, literally get a couple times people, or Willen asking, why is Jesper doing, what is Jesper doing here? Matthias going like that. And then it's like, oh, Jesper's a fabricator. And I'm just like, of course he is. Of course he is, because that's how you're going to get out of the stupid cage. That was, it felt like, again, it felt like a surprise, which was like, oh, there was literally no lead up except for the fact that it was like Jesper all of a sudden, and he was like, does Kaz trust me, etc. That type of thing. And yeah, so what are your thoughts on that? Because I remember reading it, I was, my initial thought was like, of course he is. Like that was just literally like, of course he is.
Like, same. It felt like that was one part where it was just like plot convenient. It was plot convenient for him to be a fabricator, so he was one. And I was just like, whoa, okay, okay, sure, fine.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of felt like an ex machina moment of,
Mm-mm.
I mean, again, it's sort of done in the spirit of, oh, we've got this twist now, which explains everything. Or like, Kaz is super smart, and, we all like, we're kind of like looking in on his plan. But at the same time, there was never any, if they had even like a small scene of Jesper looking at Nina, or like interacting with Nina, sort of going like, oh, so this is the power of a Grisha, something like that, to show his curiosity, or at least the mindset of a person who knows that they are this, but they don't want to come out as this. Like,
Okay.
at least like, have that interest, so then we can go forward with that assumption of like, okay, that was an interesting thing that we can call back to, rather than just,
And there's a
I
perfect
guess he
scene
is.
for that as well, actually, because when they're marching through the wasteland, right, through the Nordic wasteland, just everything white, and they come across the burned Grisha, does Jesper actually have a reaction to that? Because apparently that's him being burnt.
Yeah.
And Nina, is actually went
Doesn't-
into a full meltdown, but Jesper's not doing anything. So like,
Yeah, that would have been a perfect moment, and they missed it. And it was in Nina's perspective, but Nina could have noted that, because she doesn't know, until later, that Jesper's a fabricator. So she could have noted, oh yeah, Jesper's really affected by this. Like, why?
yeah, for
Like, he
whatever
must be-
reason, or like,
Yeah.
Jesper's looking a bit green, but he was just blown up because there was like an explosion or something, and it was just like, oh, okay, that's some indication. But the entire point of Jesper being like, oh, why is Jesper here? It's like, obviously, like, it was so let's put it this way, it was so obvious that Jesper was there for something. But then when they pull out the fabricator, it's like, of course he would be like this one thing that it was. And it was, yeah, it was just a bit bizarre. I mean, I have Jesper, like, I feel like Jesper was done a bit short. I feel like, honestly, would have been great to have like Kaz Jesper moments, honestly, because Jesper is bi, and that's great. Okay, actually, representation. Let's get into this other thing, which you can add if you had anything else to say, obviously, like, interrupt me. But I'm just gonna skip into representation, which I actually had this talk with maybe one of you again. I feel like we interacted a lot about this book while we were reading it, but essentially it was that, like, on the front of the book, literally, it says, like, here we go. Cracking page turner with multi-ethnic band of misfits with differing sexual orientations who satisfyingly, believably gel into a family. So I was like ready for, 3 out of 5 of these characters to have like different sexual orientations. And we get like proper representation, and instead we get by Jesper, which is not even fully explored. That was it was kind of like, oh, he has a crush on Kaz, and that's why he's doing it, but Kaz doesn't pay any attention to him. He flirts with
I didn't get
Willen.
that at all. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, and that was literally when he was on the boat, and he stood with Ine, and they were all like on the boat after they went, and he was like, oh yeah, what are you in for? It's like, oh well, the honeybee and the honeycomb analogy, and it's like, oh yeah, but the bee might sting us or some crap. This was in here, yeah. And there were, yeah, so that was, again, it was like, all right, he's bi, but okay. And then we have this Willen flirtation that's going on. But besides that, is anybody and Willen, I guess Willen is, for all intents and purposes, I mean, we know that he slept with his tutor, and he's like responding to Jesper's flirtation, so we can assume he's either bi or gay or pan or whatever, but like not of these standards, like just heterosexual orientation. But you're telling me that 2 men are our representation, period? Like, this is like
at the end of the book, at the end of like, at the like tail end, and it just comes off of like, what's his name? Jesper makes a remark about like, oh yeah, something women, and then Wyland just goes, only women? No, not only women. Bum bum bum. Like, it just, yeah, it kind of feels a bit
I mean, with that
cheap,
blurb,
maybe?
with that blurb, I was honestly, Kaz, Ace Kaz, give me that. That would have been great. Or like, because that would have made a lot of sense, in the sense of like how he emotionally connected to everyone, but why he would like not, just doesn't see people that way. Like, it would be a great, because asexuals, they can romantically feel that, but just not.
No, they can't make him ace, because in the second book, obviously, once he finally saves Iner somehow by risking his life, he's gonna touch her without being like, afraid of the fact that he's touching another human being, and they're gonna kiss, and they're gonna be like, oh my god, this man took away his trauma because love prevails.
All right, so
Like,
that's your
bookmark it. It's gonna happen. If it doesn't happen, I will be more shocked, and I will give the author more respect. If it doesn't happen.
That's such a shout. I am fully for that. I mean, I'm not for that, but I think it'll happen.
Yep.
Yeah, they're setting it up nice and good.
I thought that was a really undermining bit as well, in that there's a bit of dialogue at the start of the book, where you've only just met Inej and Kaz, and it's them talking on the bridge. I think it's a bridge, like, and near the docks or the harbor, and she sneaks up on him, and it's sort of this back and forth about, like, you should be more careful, or did you know this and that, and it kind of, from Kaz's perspective, Kaz is like, that's why I respect this person, because they're sneaky and stuff like that. And then later in the book, you get the backstory of how they met, and how Kaz was fascinated with Inej because she snuck up on him and couldn't figure out how she did that. And then it says literally about 3 paragraphs later that never happened again. And you're like, what? Okay, what? So you figured it out after one time. So what's her usefulness then? If the sneaky sneakman is no longer sneaky to you, like you suddenly, it's like, yeah, you have a perfect mind. You're like some Sherlock. He is Sherlock. He is literally just Sherlock from the TV show, which I do not like. It's terrible. It has such bad dialogue, but like, he's just got some perfect galaxy brain mind where it's like, now I've calculated all the ways that she can sneak up on me upon one visit of her, and now it says I never snuck up on him again. He always knew. And you're like, okay, well, all right then. Kaz is
Nothing
some
more
super
romantic than
genius.
that.
And that was, so that scene that they described them meeting, he was still like, I don't know, 13 or something. No, he was still in his young days as Kaz Brekker, and so he was even super competent as this.
Yeah, 14-year-old actually.
And you're like, what the hell? Okay, then you're just some like genius kid that can now anticipate a goddamn assassin almost. I'm sure ninjas are terrified of Kaz. He's got their number. He's selling their secrets on the black market. Here's how to spot a ninja. Their footsteps will make the tiniest little dove feet taps like a pigeon. And you'll be able to tell. Turn around at the last instant so they still don't think you're there.
But he couldn't anticipate that when they break out of the prison, that the army might send reinforcements to the harbor, where the only place that it would make sense for prisoners to escape. Oh my God, they have ships there? How did they get there so fast?
It undermines the niches of the character. It's the basic heist movie trope. And also tribe. Is that most heist movies are tribe, but like, is that every character has their own thing, and it felt like some of them were undermined in that Jesper's thing was that he was a sharpshooter, and then it turns out his usefulness is as a fabricator, and they kind of just add that in.
And he's also bi, like,
yeah, but we don't get enough of that. I want more. I want exploration of that. No, we don't get that. And like, also Inej is super sneaky. No one knows where she is, but Kaz does. Why do you need Inej if you are equally as sneaky or know how to do it?
Can I actually raise a point? And this might be me going devil's advocate, but
of course.
far.
I mean, this is why we're here. Go ahead.
I will set the argument that these characters are highly enjoyable, but they're actually terribly written. All of them.
Okay.
Kaz included, because
this is spicy. This is like, this is level 8 spice, but let's go.
We're gonna get at least 3 dislikes from Booktube super fans.
Because regardless of everything that we're brought to know about them, and what we like about them, Kaz's deviancy, him being like Sherlock, and his brutality while at the same time keeping a cool head, but apart from the trauma, then Inej's sneakiness, apart from the fact when she's not sneaky and it doesn't really make sense at points, and then Jesper's like tropes upon tropes upon tropes. all of this is really enjoyable, and it's set out like a tick box of what makes an interesting character, but there's no real background ever, or like development, or enough time for it to harbor why they're like this. Because at least for Kaz, because this all came from the fact that Kaz is basically Sherlock Holmes, when all we know that we've established from his childhood is that he was a bright-eyed young boy who liked magic tricks. All of a sudden, he can break kneecaps, figure out how the sneakiest person in all of Ketterdam, who nobody else can ever see. After one like time, he knows how she sneaks about. All like maybe 2 years after joining the gang, and just like from doing odd jobs here and there, like yes, he's a really good character in terms of being interesting, but then now the more that I think about it, at least personally, it doesn't really seem that we're given enough buildup to warrant him being this. It's just like, here he is now, here he is later. All this is like up to your interpretation, but somehow he becomes the coolest cat in town, and we root for him because he is the coolest cat in town. And fair enough, he is a very cool cat. But
And
that,
not the why.
but not the why. And kind of like it's definitely looking back, because like I didn't even think about this up until this point, and now I'm just kind of left there going like, but yeah, but why? Because now it just seems like we go from one to another. There's no real substance in the middle to hold it. Like there's no glue, and it just keeps you going like, okay, sure, but why? It kind of like everything now is starting to become a lot more 2D than the 3D. Like it's things layered on top of one another, but very thinly, to actually not really create that much substance. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit too controversial, but
I agree.
Yeah,
As soon
I
as you
think-
start like disassembling like the show Sherlock, like because it's interesting because of the how things are happening and the what is happening, but as soon as you like finish the whole series and then go, but why were they there? Why that doesn't make. As soon as you start questioning why, it starts falling apart. But it was really entertaining at the time. It just has the same feel where it's like, man, that was cool. But why? Now that I've finished it, why did that happen?
yeah, basically. Just again, I'm not knocking like the what we get from it, because it's hugely entertaining as a book. It won't really affect my score that much on it. Like maybe it would take it down maximum by half a point if I ever deemed it so. I don't know, but it does kind of leave me wanting a bit more, or it makes me realize that it's not as well written or not as well developed as I thought it was previously, which isn't a bad thing per se, but
it makes me realize not good books, but books which have all bases covered. And the thing is, like, it honestly makes me realize why Lord of the Rings is as good as it is. Or for example, even, series aside, I think the Game of Thrones is very, very good in giving like so much backstory, and it's very easy, or like there's plenty of information about the world.
the
And
books, right? Not the series.
that's why I said the
There
series
was
aside.
no
Okay.
TV
Yeah,
show. That never
there
happened.
was no war in Bossing Say.
Stannis Baratheon is fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, I've only read the books.
After season 4 is just a fever dream.
Yeah, so half of it's made up. Genuinely.
Yeah, actually. But essentially, I think I completely agree. Is that it's or I agree in the sense it feels like, again, I gave the book finally 5 stars because I found it immensely enjoyable, and for what it's supposed to be, I think the concept of a heist, the heist in this way, and all the bands is really, really great. And fan fiction was written for established tropes to have all of these bands, etc., because that's what people want. We want to feel good about people interacting and having your back, and you want to have this group of friends, like, I will fight with you to the death. This is like D&D, right? This is why we want to enjoy this type of literature. But it felt that give us more of that to build up the relationship for why they're doing all of this together, which brings me honestly to the next point, and probably my last point that I can think of from the top of my head that was my major kind of issue, and that was Nina and Matthias. Because I think they are actually more problematic than previously thought. Like, if you look at them and what they contribute and what they're supposed to stand for, I mean, let's put it this way: if they're supposed to stand for two opposing forces, and it's kind of like the Romeo Juliet type of, bigger things and bigger ideologies are keeping two people who want to be together, but there's not even really, like, yes, they save each other, and yes, there's chemistry type of thing, but like,
I mean, the chemistry is basically I saved you, and also you're so hot. Yeah, that's about it. She's
you
like,
lay
I
with
hate
each
her,
other naked.
but she's so beautiful. But I hate her. But she's so beautiful. But I hate her. But she's so beautiful. That's it. That's like up until the point where you develop their backstory, it just feels like I love her, but I hate her. But she's so beautiful, and I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Matthias and Nina, like, we already made the point about it being a way too mature relationship for how old they are. And back to your point, Alex, about the why, like the why they are the way they are, you never get that fully, even with their backstory of how they met. Like, I did not feel like established about Nina's deal, and I didn't feel established about Matthias's deal. And them together for a good portion of the book, it was like, nope. Like, I love a good enemies to lovers romance, but this is not a good, and this is problematic.
This is child pornography.
Yeah, and yeah, uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. And then even at the end or towards the middle, when they start to like connect and forgive each other or whatever, it almost felt like not really sudden, but just kind of like a little too quick or a little too drastic a change. And their whole resolution about, oh, we're in this together, we're gonna kill the scientist guy, and then they never do. Like, that
I was just
totally
thinking
dropped.
of that. Yeah,
it gets totally dropped because Matthias decides, oh, Kaz is pretty okay, I guess. I don't know, like I don't even remember what his rationale was. It was just, I feel like it completely fell by the wayside. And so then what was holding them together was just, oh yeah, we like each other now because extremes are bad.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, I guess I've used up all of my major gripes, I would say, with the book. So, like, to summarize for me, the line: if anybody else has any other major gripe, this is your time to speak. This is your time to to air it out.
I just like to say to anybody who got to this point, at least personally, while it does sound as if I've dissected this book to, like, high hell, and like apparently everything is wrong with this book, nothing's good, I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And if the second book is better than the first, I look forward to it. I genuinely do. That being said, I can enjoy a piece of literature while at the same time kind of looking at it going like, is that it? Just kind of poking it with the stick and going like, do something. It's like, yeah, no, I enjoyed it, but looking back at it, it leaves me wanting more, and hopefully the second book will develop a lot of the points which were gripes and use it to its advantage. Step over the corpse of this first book after the slaughter that we have brought it through to elevate it to new highs.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like, I gave it 5 stars. For everything that we've said, I gave it 5 stars because I think that it's, when you read a lot, as all of us do, you get a ton of bad books, and when you come across you realize the range of good to bad that there exists. And this book is not like up here, but it's like it's about here. And it's just, I think personally, we're dissecting it to the point of the way that it is because it's so good. It's like some of my teachers that I got in university previously, who gave me like a grade lower than I deserved, told me that and they were like, rewrite this. to get the highest grade. I'm like, why? And they looked at you and said, because you could do better. So that's what it feels like, honestly, for me, is that it feels like Bardugo has the potential to do better. And I actually feel like it could be better. And I'm kind of interested to see her most recent Grisha novels to see if that is the case, as she improved as a writer. But yeah, I agree. I think it's good. It's just it like, if you critically look at it, there's just stuff that she could do better. But for what it is, it's very, very good. I don't know
One
what you
question I
guys
do
think.
have, just quickly, sorry, is that I wonder if her other books suffer from the same thing, or if it's something to do with the fact that it's establishing a new set of characters out, like, in the universe, and so she feels that she can just, not describe the universe as much, not describe the power rankings as much, kind of pop these characters into fruition here, rather than, develop them organically, because it's a standalone story that has to exist in the world. I don't know.
That's why we're all going to be reading Shadow and Bone as well, because apparently the TV show is going to meld them together. But speaking of the TV show, the official photos are out. Some of the official photos are out, and we have the photos and the actors for Kaz, Jesper, and Inej. And I thought we would all take a sneaky look at this.
I may have looked at these.
I haven't
I
seen
want to
them
see
yet.
them again though,
All right.
because I just want to throw out there real quick that the ages of these actors, and this is not uncommon at all when it comes
They're
to
like
casting teenagers,
25.
they're 26 to 28, all of them. I'm pretty sure.
The show is trying to do what the book could not.
Yes.
It wrote itself into a hole.
So what we have here, I hope everybody can see this. On my right, this is Kaz. This is Inej.
25.
And this is Jesper.
25.
25. Yep. Inej.
25, 25, 23.
I can't see Kaz. Hold on, I'll move my box. There we
You
go.
have to move it.
The other side.
Does he wear a hat normally?
He looks menacing. Excellent.
He
Good
does wear a
casting
hat.
choice.
He does wear a hat because he loses it, or no, Inej buys him a new one, and
he looks like a disgruntled 28-year-old.
Yeah, so here we have another photo of them, which is, I think, this guy, this girl, and this guy. They are from the Shadow and Bone.
The guy on
universe.
the left has been on he's in like the Punisher show and stuff. Like
I have no idea.
He is like 30.
But
I think I might have seen him in Westworld, but
Yeah.
So this is Jesper. This is apparently Kaz, apparently, and this is Inej. So
who's Matthias? Is the guy on the left?
no.
Matthias?
They're not all of them. The first in the front. These three are from the Shadow and Bone, because the way that the show is going to work is that they're going to incorporate both the Shadow and Bone trilogy to happen simultaneously as the Six of Crows duology, even though Six of Crows apparently happens after the events of the Shadow and Bone, so we're not really sure what's happening. I just know.
Can we take a moment to appreciate this fan art that was on the left? Like, if you go back to the tab.
Let me go back.
Look at this! Look at this man! This 17-year-old man who looks like he's got a little bit of graying hair as well. Look at that! A very experienced face. He knows what he's doing.
That's the face
He
of a
knows what he's
17-year-old criminal mastermind. Absolutely.
17-year-old.
I want what he's having.
Oh yeah, this is a 17-year-old.
How do I get to be 6'10" and menacing?
This is a 17-year-old. Yes, that's definitely.
Do I just have to jump in a cart full of corpses and then I'll turn out like this? This sounds fantastic.
You know what I thought? Okay, can I just throw it out there? I know there was a traumatic scene and it was terrible and all that with the plague, but I could not help but think of the "Bring Out Your Dead" scene from Monty Python. I'm not dead. No, that was Kaz. It was the old guy. No, he's dead. I feel happy. I was like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking of this now, but I can't help it because it's literally that scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something. I feel like that scene again, it's so movie-esque, is just like but anyway,
It's like an anime. That's what it is.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
all these kids that you find out in like episode 4 are actually kids and not 25-year-olds that
Yeah.
are experienced war soldiers and stuff, and you're like, what the hell? Okay, fine, you're 15-year-old high schoolers. What's
I
going
mentally
on?
age up characters anyway, just because I
Mm.
feel like that's just the way that I cope with them being the way that they are. But to wrap up the video, because I feel, I'm not actually sure how long we've been talking, but it feels like a long time. I'm going to ask all of you, since all of you are now, on this journey, so you don't really have an out. What are your expectations for Cricket Kingdom? And I'm going to go last because, as I said, I've started, and I am going to stop and wait for you guys because I don't want to finish the book and then wait for 3 weeks until you guys finish. But yes, what is your expectation?
None whatsoever.
I mean, no, you said besides the fact that, Inej and Kaz are totally gonna make out and lie naked next to a Fjordian fire in a whaling cap.
Honestly, that'd be even better if somehow it went full on Nina Matthias. I'm really scared. What I will say is the fact that Nina is now, because she had to take one of the scenes that I did enjoy as sort of like, kind of suffers from the exact same thing of her having to take the
Yurdaparum, yeah.
Yurdaparum to save them, which I did appreciate the fact because it did feel like there was a consequence. I'm scared that she's gonna survive, and it's no offense to her. Like she's great, and she apparently looks great, depending on if you like Matthias's descriptions as well. But like it just feels it feels like the usual cheap thing of putting a character's life in danger only to have them survive somehow through something that has been shown to have no cure in dependency because love wins.
Yeah.
I'm scared for that. I mean, I'm hopeful for the book from what you said, but I'm scared. I'm scared that it's it's gonna be enjoyable, but then it's gonna make no sense, or it's just gonna be cliches. But we'll see.
Okay. Johnny, Becca?
I kind of want I want to toe the line between want and what I expect, but like expect.
I mean, you can go both. You can tell us
I
both.
expect another pretty damn grand tale of twists and turns between chapters. I love the constant switching between perspectives. I found that quite rich and good in a book. There's a lot of fiction that you can read where they'll add the occasional extra POV in, but in this case, it's like constantly you get to check in with the characters, but they're still together, so you don't feel that you're missing out from them for too long. You're just seeing them from a different character's perspective. I expect more depth, more exploration, more. I think we'll get more backstory, hopefully, or more explanation on how Kaz is so Kaz. And yeah, probably Kaz and Inej eventually. I want more. This is a want, but I kind of feel like the book will push it that way for Matthias and Nina reasons. Stuff about Fjordian culture and Ravkan culture. I want like them to travel there for reasons. I want because I feel like they explored what they needed to from the merchant town. I forget its name now. They didn't spend too long there, but it just came across as a typical trading city. What else can you get
Well,
there
it's
apart from
Ketterdam.
spooky?
Yeah.
No,
What
but-
else can you
oh,
get from there apart from spooky backstory? Conniving gangster stuff. Like I want more. I want to put them in unfamiliar environments, these characters, and see how they cope because that'll be interesting. I feel like the book will try and do that because that's how you explore a person's depth. And clearly now when they have compromised resources and having to do all of this for friendship reasons, friendship is magic. then you know it's
Please don't
gonna
copyright
develop
me.
into
Do not copyright strike me for that.
it's gonna turn out to be fun. I can't wait. I'm gonna read it, and as I said, I agree with Alex. It's a very I could pick apart the book, but at the same time, the first time I read it and finished it, I was like, that was really fun.
Yeah.
That was really good, and I can pick it apart now. I've read it, or similarly at like a show where you watched it and you enjoyed it after watching it, and then a week later you're like, it's the same feeling. Actually, 4 or 5 out of 10, 5 out of 5 book. I quite liked the book. It was fun. So yeah.
Oh, it's me now, huh?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, what I expect is another highfalutin, adventure with plenty of heisty shenanigans, but in different locales. Like I really hope, because yeah, we've seen Fjerda, we've seen Ketterdam show us something new. What I'm hoping for, honestly, is a tighter plot. Like I want it to be a tighter plot so that we can focus more on deepening the character interactions. So and I expect there to be lots of fun, witty dialogue and banter, but I would like to see like relationships between characters like even more developed, and for the whys to make sense. And yeah, it's hard because like with this book, it was put on such a big pedestal. You went in with such high expectations, so it's easy to like nitpick. I mean, you can nitpick anything, but like it's not like the most perfect book ever written, which is kind of what Booktube like kind of made it into. But of course, no book is the most perfect book ever written. But was it enjoyable? Absolutely. Like it was a fun ride. So I'm hoping for the second one to be even more enjoyable.
I am going to say, as somebody who's read the first 100 pages or so, I am liking it a lot. Definitely. I think there's more oomph that all of you guys want. That's kind of my prelude. The way that I want like my predictions for the rest of the book, however, are, and hopes and fears, are that I really hope it knows where it's going. That is all I'm going to say without spoiling it, but I'm going to say that in the place that I am 100 pages in, I am in the place of like, I really hope it knows where it's going. So that's where I'm going to leave it and not say anything about that. But yeah, I am going to wrap up the video here and say that we've been the Ink Catchers Book Club. If you'd like to join us and read along, then I'll leave the link to the Discord server in the description down below. You can click and join us. Yeah, we're a fun bunch. We have a couple more people who enjoy doing this with us every so often. I would be really happy if you go check out Becca, because she produces really, really cool videos here on YouTube. So I'm going to put her details in the description down below. So go check her out. I would really like it if you like the video and tell me what you thought about the video and what we could do better for next time. What would you like to hear? Maybe you'd like us to be a bit less on the, not negatives, but what we didn't like, or would you like us to talk more about the positives, or what exactly are you expecting from these types of videos? That'd be really cool. If you'd want to follow the releases of these types of videos, you can always subscribe to my channel. That is where it always is, down below. So I'd be really thankful for that. But yes, this has been us, and we will catch you for Crooked Kingdom and potentially, how we feel like it, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, because I'm feeling a watch along somehow, maybe not simultaneously, but like watch the series and then compare it to the book. I'm feeling like if we're in it for in for a penny, in for a pound. But yeah, anyway, this is us. Stay warm, stay safe, stay cozy. It's really wintry, so really stay warm, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining in.